Hello, this is just another 80s Geek, and you are watching the Geek Showcase, where we highlight all things geeky. And today, we're getting back into a series we started a little while ago, where we are ranking the crews of the various Star Trek shows. So, we have already done the original, the OG Star Trek series. You can go back and check that episode out. We also did Star Trek The Next Generation, so you can check the rankings out on that one as well. Today, we're going to go chronologically all the way back to the beginning for Star Trek Enterprise. This one's going to be fairly quick because there's not a huge cast here. This is the original cast if you're going chronologically. And this is a cast that we're going to say consists of 7 characters because there's 7 main crew characters on this series. This series aired on UPN from 2001 to 2005, consisted of 4 seasons and 98 episodes, and it's probably best known in my mind for the crazy, ridiculous theme song that I love, actually. If you heard this theme song, you would never say it's a Star Trek theme song. But quick story here, when you're watching these series streaming, you always have the option to skip the intro. But honestly, I never skipped the intro for this show because I love the theme song so much, even though it has nothing to do with Star Trek, really. So check that out if you want to have a little laugh on the theme song to Star Trek Enterprise. But we're going to rank our 7 characters. We're going to start from 7 and make our way up to number 1. So let's start with number 7. For me, number 7 is fairly easy. This is helmsman Travis Mayweather, portrayed by Anthony Montgomery. Travis Mayweather does not get much to do in this series. He's kind of like a token crew member, typical of maybe some helmsmen that we've seen come and go, but he is a main character. He's there for the whole thing, basically. I just can't vote him higher than number 7 here just because of the lack of storylines he gets, the lack of interesting things that he has surrounding him as a character. So if you were to take like one character out of this crew and have the least impact on it, it would be Travis Mayweather. Nothing against the performance or the character in general. They just don't give him a lot to do. So Travis Mayweather is number 7. Final note on Travis Mayweather, he was ranked 33rd most important Starfleet character by Wired. I'll do a couple of those throughout as we kind of make our way through. So for number 6, I'm going to go with the tactical officer Malcolm Reed, played by Dominic Keating. This is probably where I'm going to get some blowback here because he's somewhat of one of probably the characters that gets the most from a story standpoint, but I'm still only ranking him at number 6. I just didn't care for the character that much. I thought it was inconsistent the way it was played a little bit, as far as like the motivations behind the character, some of his desires, and his orientation in general is played differently at different times in the series, which makes it confusing. And I just didn't care for the character overall. He does bring a lot to the table as far as stories. You know, this is the guy that kind of brought us and invented the Red Alert system, the Red Alert, Yellow Alert for the whole Star Trek franchise. So he does do some important things in this. And that's one of the things that Star Trek Enterprise has going for it, is we get to see some of the formations or inventions of different things that we see throughout the rest of the series. So he is involved in that and gets a decent amount of play when it comes to that, screen time, lines, stories, etc. I just didn't care for him overall. I didn't think he had the charisma or the charm that I would have preferred from that character. And like I said, I just thought it was inconsistent with how it was portrayed. He was ranked the 29th most important Starfleet character by Wired and the 31st best character overall by The Wrap in 2018. So some decent rankings there, but one of those is out of 100, so it kind of puts him, in the top third, but not super high amongst that. So our number 6 is Malcolm Reed. Moving on to number 5, I'm going to go with the comm officer played by Linda Park here. This is Hoshi Sato. So Hoshi Sato, I think, has a ton of potential as a character. She doesn't nearly get the amount of story that like Malcolm Reed does, who we just ranked at number 6. But the reason I rank Sato higher is because from a character standpoint, I feel like she's one of the most underrated characters that we get in Star Trek, and maybe underrealized. Like, she had so much potential as a character, and I think some of it was missed. Some of it they didn't write enough for her, but that's not necessarily the character's fault. The character was still intriguing. The character was still interesting. The character still had brought a lot to the table. So I liked the character more than Malcolm Reed. And I thought she had the potential to be a better character overall if they would have given her more time, more story, etc. So I'm ranking her ahead of Reed here. For those that don't know, Sato was the person that kind of was key in inventing the Universal Translator, which is one reason why all of the Star Trek crews from here on out can understand the different alien races and things of that nature from this Universal Translator. Clever plot device there to avoid a lot of confusion in all the other series. As far as some rankings go, Slate in 2013 rated Sato as one of the 10 best crew characters in the franchise. The Wrap in 2016 ranked her 37th of the best characters in the franchise, and Wired put her at 27th as far as most important Starfleet character. I like Sato. I like the potential. That's why I'm putting here at number 5, ahead of Reed and ahead of Mayweather. For number 4, we're going to go back-to-back with the females. We're going to go with the science officer played by Jolene Blalock. This is T'Pol. I think T'Pol is a great character, one of the more memorable characters in Star Trek. However, this didn't always come across the best in this series. There's a lot of kind of the typical, we're going to put someone out there and not put very much clothes on her, put tight clothes on her, and really try to play the sex appeal, which I'm not saying you know there's anything wrong with someone being attractive or things of that nature, but at times it came across a little hollow or a little off-putting the way they did it. But I don't think that's necessarily the character's fault or the actress's fault. The actress Jolene Blalock did phenomenal with this role. She was actually nominated for multiple Saturn Awards for this and won at least one, I think, out of the 4 times that she was nominated. So she did great with what she was given. There was just some kind of questions as far as how the character was written by clearly male writers at times. But overall, I think she's a fantastic character. 10th most important character in Starfleet, according to Wired in 2016. The 8th most attractive Star Trek character by Screen Rant in 2017. 28th best character overall by The Wrap in 2018. 17th best actor in the franchise by CBR in 2018. That's an interesting one as far as who are the best actors that have portrayed characters in Star Trek. And the 4th fiercest female character in the franchise, again voted by CBR. So some love there from a variety of different angles. And for me, Science Officer T'Pol comes in here at number 4. All right, that moves us up to the top 3. For number 3, I'm going to go with the physician, the doctor, played by John Billingsley. We're talking about Phlox. I think Phlox is just one of the most unique characters in Star Trek. That's why I'm putting him above T'Pol, Sato, Reed, etc. I just think he has a little bit more to offer. He brings that kind of alien perspective to the crew. Each crew seems like they have somebody that's kind of just way out of left field type deal. And I think he supplies that for this crew and just brings a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different angles that he can be involved with storylines and a lot of the different relationships he has with the other characters. I think it's just very well done. Phlox was actually voted the number 1 out of the main cast doctors in the franchise by Sci-Fi in 2016. So that's saying something with some of the other doctors we've had. 27th, the main cast of the Trek franchise by The Wrap in 2018, and the 40th most important character in Starfleet by Wired in 2016. So kind of all over the place. Number 1 for the Doctors, but 40th most important character by Starfleet. Probably somewhere in the middle there would be where I would fall, but for me, for Star Trek Enterprise, Phlox comes in as the 3rd best character. That leaves us 2. Everybody should know who those 2 are. It's just, again, what order are we going to do it in? I'm going to kind of pull something like I did with the original series. And for number 2, that's where I'm going to put the captain. So Captain Jonathan Archer, for me, is going to be number 2 best character on Star Trek Enterprise, played by, obviously, the iconic Scott Bakula, who I grew up watching on Quantum Leap. Love Scott Bakula, love the performance here. The character himself, though, when I'm used to some of the other charismatic captains that we see along the way in different Star Trek shows, left me just a teeny tiny bit wanting a little bit more. So that's why I'm kind of putting him at number 2. Now, obviously, he plays a humongous role in Star Trek lore, the formation of Starfleet. He has things named after him like ships and space stations and all kinds of stuff. So he's very important, and I get why he would be ranked super high by a lot of people, and usually the captain kind of has a little bit of a upper hand advantage, I guess, when we're doing these rankings. But for me, I'm going to put him at number 2. I just think I love Scott Bakula. I would watch him just about in anything. And I do like the character of Captain Archer. I just think one character I liked a little bit better, and obviously we'll get to that in a second. But first, some stats here. Jonathan Archer was ranked the 8th best captain by Vulture in 2019. There's not that many captains, guys, to rank, so 8th is not necessarily the best there. He was ranked the 6th best captain by Space.com, the 7th best captain by Washington Post, the 4th best captain by Screen Rant, so anywhere from 4 to 8 as far as all the different captain rankings, which we will do one of our own once we get through all these. He was rated the 5th best member of Starfleet in 2018 by CBR. They put him in between Spock and Janeway. I don't know how you would put Captain Archer as a better member of Starfleet than Spock, but so be it, I guess. That's what they wanted to do. He was rated the 29th best main cast by The Wrap and the 9th most important character in Starfleet by Wired. I think that's where he gets his just due, is when if you're thinking about who's the most important character in the franchise. I think a lot of the characters in Star Trek Enterprise actually have a little bit of a leg up because of how important they are with the formation of things that we come to know, like the Universal Translator, like the Red Alert, like just the formation of Starfleet in general. Like, these people are very important. So I think when you phrase it like that, who's the most important character, you can make a case for a lot of these folks. When it comes to like best captain or best member of all of Starfleet, things of that nature, that's where I see Archer slipping a little bit. But he's still, number 2 is fantastic. So for me, Jonathan Archer, number 2 member of the crew of the Star Trek Enterprise. That leaves us with number 1 as the only one left. Everybody should be able to figure out which one we're going to be talking about, and we are going to be going with the Chief Engineer, played by Connor Trinneer, and we are talking about Charles Trip Tucker III. So Trip Tucker is my number 1 character of Star Trek Enterprise. To me, he's just the most charismatic, the most charming. He brings something that this crew is lacking. None of the other characters quite supply this like he does. Maybe T'Pol comes the closest, but he just brings an energy to this series that is just very much needed. So I really enjoy Trip Tucker being here. He's critical in the formation of the warp drive, things of that nature. He's rated the 21st best character in all of Star Trek by IGN, 13th most attractive Star Trek character by Screen Rant, the 16th best main cast member by The Wrap, and the 23rd most important character in Starfleet by Wired. I would rank him as a little bit higher there when it comes to most important characters. I think he's higher than 23rd with all the stuff he does. I mean, every series after this deals with the warp drive and some of the things that he's key in developing. So I think Trip Tucker just brings a feel to this series that is like the identity of Star Trek Enterprise in general. Like, he is the identity of this series, in my opinion. He has a good relationship dynamic and kind of interesting storyline between him and Archer. Obviously, they have a history there. Him and Reed obviously have a closeness. Trip Tucker and some of the females, obviously, in the series have some relationships and things of that nature, with as charming, as kind of charismatic as he is. So I just think, for me, the portrayal of Trip Tucker by Connor Trinneer is what makes this series the most rewatchable. And so for that reason, I am going to put him as the number 1 crew member of the Star Trek Enterprise. So just going back through the list fairly quickly, we have 7, Travis Mayweather, 6, Malcolm Reed, 5, Hoshi Sato, 4, T'Pol, 3, Phlox, 2, Captain Jonathan Archer, and 1, Chief Engineer, Trip Tucker. So all right, that does it for this episode of the Geek Showcase. Tune in for more episodes in the future as we count down the cast members of all the other Star Trek series, as well as all kinds of other geek-related content coming to you soon. We'll check you next time.